Hey everybody, Jay, Krista, Say I Do Forever, and we are on our Friday 5 love languages, and it is loving the unlovely.
Yep, chapter 12. This is our final chapter. He does have a chapter 13, but it's just kind of him wrapping things up in a couple paragraphs. So this is the official last chapter and last video we'll do in these series. But stay tuned because we have a new book also coming up. We'll tell you a little bit about it at the end of this video.
A new book.
A new book.
I like a new book.
And also, we are going to answer in this video a huge question that so many married couples nowadays have to answer. And that is, can you show love to someone whom you hate? Or someone who's become your enemy? Can you show love to that person?
Which is extremely difficult.
Yeah.
Especially when you hate them.
So, I mean, after you've had some, a person just kind of ignoring your needs and you've gone on through many years, you might have come to that place. And here in this chapter, we come across Anne. And he actually comes across Anne, and she asks that question. She says, Dr. Chapman, is it possible to love someone whom you hate? Maybe that's a question you're asking at this time. Maybe you're in a really bad place in your marriage, or maybe someday down the road you will. So listen to this chapter because it might help you. Or maybe you have a friend that could use this advice. And Dr. Chapman actually walks her through what her friends say. And of course, all the friends say, dump him, get out.
Isn't that what the friends usually say?
And I think, here's my case on that. Here's what always ends up happening is that as friends, we want the best for our friend. And so when we see that they are hurting and that they're being not abused.
Just treated bad, or like not even being treated how they should be treated.
And they're not happy.
And they can tell.
We kind of want to come to their aid and give them advice that would make them instantly happy.
Right, it's like a quick fix for their relationship.
So we're like, nobody
really
should be treated
anything
like that. And we're not talking abuse.
We're just talking about couples that struggle, that the spouse is ignoring the other spouse, or they don't give them the time of day.
Or they've fallen out of love.
Yeah, there's nothing there. The spark has just went out.
Because abuse is a totally different thing.
Totally other topic.
Yep, and that is actually serious, and that's where you should give advice that it's probably time to get out.
Yeah.
But if someone is just struggling because they've fallen out of love, or they're not feeling love from their spouse, we often now, because we are kind of that instant society, we will give the advice, well, get out. Do what's best for you. And maybe this marriage just needs a little healing miracle. And maybe,
You always hear a lot of people say, well, you should just do whatever makes you happy.
Yeah.
Well, you know what? If you work on your marriage and you treat your spouse with respect, more than likely, the spouse is going to treat you with respect, and then two people treating each other with respect can build the relationship again, And
the thing is, let's look at the bigger picture of everything. So in life, there are times that you're not going to be happy. Huge, huge aha moment. There are times in your job that you're not going to be happy. There are times when you are doing even something that is desirable to you, or not a hobby, but just like a sport.
Mm-hmm.
If you quit every time that you're not happy, then you're going to be quitting everything. Because one of the lessons of life is that to have anything of value, you got to go through times of unhappiness, just like exercise. If you want to lose weight and be toned, you've got to go through the stuff that doesn't make you happy, which is the exercise and the not eating the sweets.
And the pain. Yeah.
So marriage is a lot like that. In the thing is that it's not always happy. And sometimes you got to go through some hard times, and sometimes you got to work a little harder. Sometimes you got to cut out the junk food or
And
the
sometimes
junk.
it's painful.
Sometimes it's painful. So we shouldn't always be jumping to people to tell them, well, just get out, quit. Because if they were training for the Olympics and they told you how hard it was, would you tell them, just quit, just get out? Nobody needs to have that kind of pain. Well, a marriage is the same thing. If you want a marriage of value, if you want a marriage of substance, then you need to go through those hard times and those difficult climbs so that you can get up to the peaks to look over into the beauty.
Just like our terminology about the roller coaster.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Gotta make those
when
climbs.
you experience the downs, you don't get off. You have the ups, and the down isn't the end of the ride. You're going to have,
Mm-hmm.
some climbs.
Yeah.
Some positive.
So what do you think about Anne? So she's up against...
I think Anne, in this chapter, Anne's got a hard road. She definitely, her husband just, and I think maybe it's because they fell out of love,
Well, and then she's like, we need to go to counseling. And he's like, no, I'm not going to counseling. You have the problem. I don't have a problem. And
I think for the most part, I think they wrote off their relationship. I think, like she said, she doesn't love him anymore. And I'm sure he felt the same way.
Mm-hmm. And that's how affairs start, too.
They both weren't getting what they wanted or needed.
Mm-hmm.
Both of them.
Yeah. So, Dr. Chapman asked the hard question, is it possible to love a spouse who has become your enemy? Is it possible to love one who has cursed you, mistreated you, and expressed feelings of contempt and hate for you? And if she could, he's talking about Anne, would there be any payback? Would her husband ever change and begin to express love and care for her? So he decides, he says, Anne, before we make a decision, because either way, whether you divorce him or whether you stay with him, it's going to be a hard road either way. So because there is an abuse, he's making this decision. But before you make that decision, let's do a challenge. Let's give it 6 months. And he calls it Love's Greatest Challenge. And he actually, because she's a Christian, and he does a 6-month experiment. Because he's a Christian, he brings up Jesus's talk about loving your enemy. And let me just, Jay, do you have that one? It's on page 151. Or were you?
I was ahead of the curve. Oh no, he says it.
He says it twice.
He repeats it on 153. So it says, "But to you who are listening, I say, love your enemies, do good to those who hate you, bless those who curse you, pray for those who mistreat you, do to others as you would have them do to you. If you love those who love you, what credit is that to you? Even sinners love those who love them."
So it's easy to love people who are loving you. It's harder to love people who aren't loving you.
Look at society today. Look at America. Look at half of America is one way, and half of America is the other way. It isn't even, not to do the politic thing, but it's not even now, because of COVID, it's not even Democrats and Republicans. It's like personal opinion to personal opinion. You know what I mean? Like it all hinges on every single person's personal preference about COVID. Even in our Sunday night Bible study, we are divided on our own opinions of COVID, and everyone has a different stance, or it's divided in our Bible study. Half are on the fence, or half are on this side, half are on this side. And the Bible study isn't that big. So, it's in everything, but it's not even a political stand.
Mm-hmm.
It's literally individual
Yeah.
opinions.
There is a lot
So,
of hate
yep,
going on in our world.
yep,
And there's a lot of that hate is spilling over also into our personal lives.
yep.
And I'll bet you there's a lot of people who take a stand in their own marriage on those subjects in different places.
Ooh, that could be too. Yeah.
I know a lot of marriages that even politically they're on either side. There's some that are on this COVID thing on either side.
Yep.
But then even deeper is if you're on the other side of religion, if you're on the other side of how you're going to raise your kids, if you're on opposite sides of
how you handle money.
All these things are going to play to the point where your spouse, who's supposed to be on the same team as you, is now your enemy. And how you view that and how you change that can determine the future of your marriage. Can you get on the same team? Can you love your enemy? Can you love someone who you feel is going exactly against what you're trying to accomplish? Can you get on the same team? Well, with Anne, they do kind of an experiment. It's 6 months. And first they come up with the objective. Okay, and he says, Anne, what do you want in a marriage? And she explains, I'm trying to think all the things she wanted in a marriage. She wanted to spend time with him. She wanted to feel loved. She kind of lists all the things that in 6 months she would hope that her marriage turned into. So then he gives her the assignments to start speaking her husband. They try to figure out without talking to the husband what his love language is, just by his complaints and stuff like that.
Yep.
So they go through that, and then they also talk about that he wants her to start with saying to her husband, okay, I'm going to do my best right now to start to be a better wife. Do you have any suggestions for me? Now, of course, at first, this is met probably with him like, I don't know,
Yeah.
Captain
Captain Grumpy Pants, of course.
Yeah. And he doesn't want to go to counseling. He doesn't want to do this. Mm-hmm. So they're having to do this all one-sided. And is it possible to heal a marriage from one side? And they prove in this that it is, because this one is a real story and it actually worked. And so she would write down all her complaints or feeling like, so that she wouldn't say it to him.
She would journal it.
She would journal it and bring it to Dr. Chapman. And then Dr. Chapman would actually help her figure out a way to turn that around to a nice request on how she could get her needs met. But her main goal was to begin speaking her husband's love languages and start trying to communicate that to her and trying. So to him, she is no longer thinking about him meeting her needs.
She is just focused on meeting his needs to get his mentality to change.
And notice the change from self-preservation to selfless. That's what will change a marriage.
Yep.
That's what's going to change a marriage. When you flip that switch from being selfish
to selfless.
Selfless.
You have to have a servant's heart.
Yeah.
You have to be a servant. And people struggle with that because people in general are, if you've noticed, just go to the grocery store or go to, wait till Black Friday. You don't even need to look at marriages. You could look at people, just people in general.
Just go people watch.
People will be so selfish and stingy and about themselves and just railroad right over the top of people, and they just don't care. They'll fight with people. I remember the videos from last year of Black Friday of people getting into fist fights.
Well, they got to get that
on
TV.
Videos of Walmart and all kinds of other stores.
You only have one chance to get, there's 2 TVs in there and there's 50 people in line. You got to be the first one there. You know what that is? Is selfishness at its finest, humanity at its finest.
Selfishness,
Or at its
inhumanity
not.
at not its finest.
Not its
Yeah,
finest.
that's anytime Black Friday happens, that's a dark day for America.
Mm-hmm.
Or all over the world. I don't know if all over the world they do Black Fridays, but Americans have it down. But it's a good example of people being
Trying to meet their own
selfish
needs.
instead of selfless. A servant's heart would help someone get a TV. A selfish person would barrel over everybody to get that TV for themselves instead of helping others.
And how much more in marriage are we seeing that?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. You know,
why do affairs happen? Because he's not meeting my needs, because she's not meeting my needs, and I have to go get my needs met.
Yep.
Why does half the things happen in marriages or just crimes in general? I want, trying to grab and trying to fill that void yourself.
Yep.
And what happened with Anne is she literally took the eyes off herself, and Dr. Chapman had her flip it to serve her spouse.
Her husband, yeah.
So I've been thinking, as we read this book, it's natural to think, okay, how am I going to get him to know my love language, right? It's natural as we read the pages, just because humanity, we automatically think about ourselves. So it's so easy to read through the pages and think, well, he's not doing that. Well, he's not doing that. Well, he's not doing that. But are you doing that?
Yeah.
Are you doing what you need to do? Because worry about what you're doing first. And we're speaking to ourselves here.
It's funny because you have to work on yourself first before you can work on them.
Yeah.
And then it all comes down to, if you work on yourself, they will work on them. You don't have to work on them. They will work on them, which in turn benefits you. So,
and that's exactly, we see it in a real life situation actually work, because in 6 months, her working with Dr. Chapman and constantly checking in with him, and then him giving him more ideas, like keep feeding into this.
To work on her.
And
then her to serve him. And then everything turned because she was working on herself to love him. And then it turned and he loves her back.
Mm-hmm. And then she was also very clear to what she needed. He helped her turn all of her complaints.
Yep.
He says, don't tell him your complaints. Write them all down, and then I'm going to help you put them into words.
To requests. Basically, without telling him, it was requests.
Yeah. So
it was like...
So what happens is that a lot of times if your spouse is always complaining about something, it's probably something they need, and they just don't know how to. So they're like, you never spend time with me. Well, he gave her the idea of saying, hey, next week, could we go over to the such and such gardens and spend Thursday evening together? I already have arrangements for a babysitter.
Because they used to do that years ago when they were first dating and the beginning of their marriage. Then all of a sudden, it just fell apart from there.
Yeah. So it's also, she's learning how to communicate her needs to him. And that's an unselfish thing, because you're not just expecting the other person to know. They are not mind readers. They don't know.
No, they don't.
So you need to communicate this. And so it was so good that Dr. Chapman could turn her nagging and complaints that she wrote down, turn them into the words that she could use to ask him for help.
Yep.
And plus she's meeting his needs. So he at that point is like so willing to, like, oh yeah, we could go to the gardens, because he's actually enjoying hanging out with her now.
Yeah, and the husband has no clue what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
He has no clue.
And
it was awesome.
And they turned the marriage completely around. It was a marriage miracle.
Yeah, it was a miracle.
All because she learned how to love her enemy.
Yeah.
To love someone who at that moment she was hating.
Which basically turned him from the enemy into the love of her life.
Yeah.
You know? Basically, that's what happened. I mean, even Dr. Chapman says that they are doing great.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Yeah. I say this every
good place
video,
to be.
but I really liked this video, and I think this one probably even made the most impact. And
this chapter.
This chapter. This video.
This video.
This chapter. So, but I know I say that every single time. But I think this one made the most impact for the majority of the marriages that we are working on. I hope that they can read this chapter. I hope that they could listen and maybe turn something around that seemed impossible and watch God work.
Right.
Love your enemy. Love those who hate you. And Jesus taught that.
Yep.
It's so good.
Yeah.
But that wraps up the 5 love languages by Gary Chapman. We have done 12 weeks. And I've learned so much. Have you learned a lot?
Well, yeah. I know we've read this book a long time ago, but going back through it, it just kind of brings all of it back to the things maybe that we missed or we forgot about that we can apply. Mm-hmm. And here we go. We're off to the races again.
Yeah, it's awesome. So I hope you enjoyed this video series on the 5 love languages. If you are just coming in at the end, we have it on our channel in the playlist. You can actually start with chapter 1 as we begin and go through all 12 chapters.
And they're not too long. You know, like this one is going to be 20 minutes or so, and I think the rest are around that. So
yeah, and you'll watch us kind of grow in our the beginning of that book was our beginning stages. So maybe we're getting a little bit better. You can give us some advice. But now we get to move to the next book on Fridays. Yeah. So watch for, I think it would be next Friday we'll start.
Well, we're going to do a
little intro.
Like
a little
short.
Yeah, we're going to do a little short announcing which book. So watch for that coming up. And
it's a fun book, let me tell you.
Yep, it's going to be an awesome book. Yeah. So watch for the, trailer. What am I saying?
Well, I guess a short is a trailer. I mean, it's going to tell them what the book is and kind of
the announcement. Watch for the announcement
of the book,
and we'll tell you which Friday we start that book.
So if you guys like this video and the others, give us a thumbs up, like it, subscribe. The subscribe button is right down, I believe, at this part of the
might be
screen.
Over here. Or could be here.
It might be over there.
It could be right there.
Might be down there. It might be over here. No, I think it is right here. Oh, maybe she's right. Anyway, it's on the bottom right-hand corner of every one of our videos. If you like this video, hit subscribe, follow us, hit the bell to get notifications. We really appreciate
Tell us in the
you
comments
guys.
Who's right.
We appreciate you all so much. Thank you to our subscribers.
Yes.
Thank you so much to all of you. We love you. We thank you. And till next time, this is Jay and Krista helping you say I do forever.
We'll see you in the next video. Bye, guys.